Welcome to CHS Ignite. I'm your host, Wyatt Burichka. We are on video, so if you guys prefer to have a visual point of the show, make sure you check us out on our social media platforms at CHS Wired. Today, we're going to get the administrator's point of view of COVID-19 and online education and more as we begin to ignite the show. Governor Mark Gordon is starting to ease some restrictions so the state can reopen. Cody schools are most likely not going to return this year due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Cases continue to grow in the state of Wyoming now at 332 as of April 24th, 2020, with 279 recoveries. After the break, we're going to give you guys the administrator's perspective of COVID-19 and online education. CHS Ignite is part of CHS Wired. CHS Wired is a journalism program that spreads news from our high school and our community. If you're stuck at home and need something to do, go watch our shows, listen to our podcast, and see what's going on around the community on our social media. You can find us on Facebook at CHS Wired, on Instagram at CHS_Wired, and on Twitter at CHS Wired to see what's going on around the community. All right, guys, I'm here with Miss Monteith. She is the superintendent for Park County School District Number 6. How are you doing today, Miss Monteith?
I'm doing well, Wyatt. Thank you.
So can you just talk about your initial reaction when you heard school was going to be canceled for a while?
Oh, gosh, Wyatt, I had started as the interim superintendent in the middle of January. So it was a new job for me, a new title, new tasks, new responsibilities. And then when we knew beginning in March that there could be issues with school closures, we were watching things happening in Washington State and what was happening with schools in Seattle. And it really didn't sink in as a possibility until we got closer to that time we actually closed. Then it became very painfully evident that it was going to be a reality. So it was a shocking and disturbing, but also an amazing challenge to get through.
You talk about that challenge with this whole thing going on, and you just get promoted to the superintendent of Park 6. How did that you transition? How did that impact the way that you were transitioning into that role as the superintendent?
Well, the initial transition into that role, at that point in time, there was really nothing contemplated in terms of the impact that this virus was going to have on the U.S. And it just at that point was kind of this scary thing that was far away. So when I first started, I was just learning the ropes, normal business, trying to understand all of the parts and pieces that are part of a district system. And that was my focus, and working with our board of trustees, getting to know the issues in the buildings, working with the building principals. So those kinds of things were in the forefront of my mind at that point, and just learning what a big job it is, because it's a huge job, and understanding all of the components that make a school district run efficiently, and making sure that staff are well taken care of, those kinds of things. That was my focus, and making sure kids were okay. So it really was a switch when we moved to, now we're going to close school, and how are we going to do this and continue to educate our kids?
Yeah, that is definitely hard. I can not imagine for a super starting the job.
Yeah.
You were just talking about students and stuff. Can you talk about like your expectations just from all students with the online education transition while we're stuck at home?
Yes. I know that's been really tough. It's been tougher for some kids than it has been for others. And I will tell you, Wyatt, that my expectation for what this looks like for 6 and 7-year-olds is way different than what my expectations are for high school students, and especially for our seniors. I have had the expectation that the online learning would not be a barrier to our high school students, especially continuing to receive credits for work that they're doing, to continue to have the expectation that they will be on track to graduate, that our seniors will be on track to graduate. So that expectation is very different from a kindergarten student who is reviewing and learning new things in a very much more compacted way. The part of their day is going to be very different in their education, even a fifth grader, even a middle school student, than someone who is earning credits at the high school. So we've had to look at that by grade level and by content area. All of those things had to be considered, and how to continue to provide support for kids based on their needs, and because it's certainly, we know that one size doesn't fit all, and for some this is more challenging than for others, and we've just had to go with trying our best to meet the needs of every student in Park 6. Very challenging.
And we do thank you guys for that, for working with that, you know what I mean?
Right.
So yesterday, Governor Gordon started unveiling his plan, and it did mention a little bit about the schools. And you guys actually had a Facebook post of talking about that press conference, and you guys potentially opening the school up just for certain students. Can you just talk about that process and what that's going to be like, just so those kids can have a better education and like get back into the swing of things?
Right. We had quite a lengthy meeting this morning with the administrative team and our directors and supervisors for the different, whether it's maintenance, food staff, transportation, talking about what does the rest of the school year look like. The Board of Trustees will be meeting Tuesday evening in a special board meeting, and they will address the school closure, anticipating that school will be closed through the end of May. That decision really kind of rests in their hands, and yet we also have to collaborate with the county health officials, the public health officials. That really is, their input is critical in knowing, because first and foremost, we need to keep people safe and healthy. So we talked about what that might look like as an administrative team, and when we talk about special populations, and the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Jillian Balo, suggested that schools could look at bringing special populations in for some combination of in-person and then continuing some virtual, just to ensure that we're meeting the needs of some of the students. And an example of that, Wyatt, would be a student with a disability who has pretty significant support needs and may receive a variety of related services. They may get occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language therapy, those kinds of things. For kids like that, it's really tough to get some of those services adequately in an online format. So we've looked at the possibility of working with our service providers, our teachers, and our parents of kids that need that kind of support, to see if there would be some advantages of having those kids come in, almost like we do during the summer. We do an extended school year, and kids come in on a limited basis for a few hours a day for maybe 4 days a week or 3 days a week, those kinds of things. So it would look very different than the normal school day, but it would provide some support for kids that just are not able to make the gains that they need to make or have the support that they need when you're in a totally online hands-off situation. So that's one population that we've talked about. We've also talked about our high school kids, frankly, who are maybe struggling to get through the coursework without additional support, and they may be in jeopardy of not receiving credits. If we have high school seniors right now who are in jeopardy, they may be A, B, C students, and suddenly they're not able to pass their coursework because they just need more help. We've talked about doing something similar to credit recovery that would provide some more specific in-person work for even that population of students. Now, none of that has been totally fleshed out, but those were some of the conversations this morning. So those are the things that we're looking at, because when you talk about special populations, we're really looking at kids that are most at risk of failure academically, socially, emotionally, in an online, 100% online setting. Some kids do great, some kids just are not going to. So we're looking at those kids that aren't doing so great. And are there some things we can do to shore up their education before the end of the school year?
Yeah, that seems like it's, I think, a smart way to get and help students out and all that.
Right.
Thank you guys for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked with Mr. Johnson a little bit. Obviously, the seniors are having the worry of graduation.
I know. I know.
What have you got? What's your guys' plan of that so far? Mr. Johnson was saying that you guys have multiple ideas, but do you guys have an idea about it, or what's that?
Well,
like?
let me just tell you what my hope is. So, no, it's a hope. It's not written in stone yet. But I would really like to honor the graduation date that CHS set of May 31st. Now, what we anticipate is that it's very unlikely that we could fill up Schweitzer Gymnasium with 500 people, right? That's not going to pass muster with our Park County Public Health. They're going to say, no, you can't bring that many people in. So how do we do that in a way that honors our seniors and their closest family members? And we do, what we're talking about is the possibility of doing a combination of in-person and Zoom. What I would love is if we had this Jumbotron in the football stadium and we could have all of our graduates and their families spread out, and it is broadcast to the rest of the world who couldn't be there in person. Wouldn't that be awesome? Then we've got a kind of the best of both worlds. So those are just things we're thinking about right now. We want to do the same thing for HMA, to honor the dates that are set, to do that in such a way that we can keep people safe and healthy, but still honor those graduates' ceremony of cap and gown and walking across the stage to receive diploma. That is such a capstone event, and it breaks my heart that we would not be able to do that. So we're going to do everything in our power to pull that off. It might look like heaven only knows what at this point, but our goal is to make that happen for our seniors, and we're hoping to honor that May 31st date. That's not set in stone, like I said, but if the governor is talking about easing some of the restrictions, we're hoping that we might be able to get away with larger gathering. Sometimes they go from 10 people to 50 people, for example. That doesn't cover all of our seniors, but if we were spread out in a big enough area, I think we might be able to get away with that. So we're going to be leaning on our senior parents and our seniors for ideas as well. As we run these things out, we want to make sure these are going to be things that you don't think are super dorky or stupid, or why would they do that? That's no fun. So we want to make sure that the seniors are amenable to those ideas as well. We got to think outside the box. This is brand new territory.
And my last question, thank you again for explaining that.
You bet.
My last question is, do you have any additional thoughts with online education, COVID-19, being stuck at home, etc.?
Oh, where do I start? This has been the most unsettling thing I think I've ever been through in my lifetime. I've been in education for over 40 years, and this is a first. I think what I've been most impressed with, and there have been some silver linings, I have watched the staff in Park 6 do some amazing things and pulled off things that I could have never imagined they'd be able to do in the short amount of time we asked them to do that in. We learned that on Sunday, the March 15th, that we were going to be closing school through the end of March, and we spent about a week brainstorming and getting things set up so that we could move to an online platform. And what I would say is, when you give teachers a task or a challenge, you say, here's what we need, and just get out of their way. And they absolutely made it happen. So we were able actually to push that education out to our kids in Park 6 a week and 2 weeks ahead of many other districts in the state. So I'm really, really proud of the work the staff has done. We talk about now, when do we get back to normal? And Wyatt, I don't know that we'll ever get back to what we considered normal. I really think this has set a different trajectory for what education looks like. My sense is that we need to be prepared to potentially close schools again, even during the school year next year, because COVID-19 is not going away. And it is something that until there's a vaccine, my understanding is that it will continue to be dangerous for large populations. So those are things we just need to be cognizant of as we go forward, and just understanding that it feels a little like we're standing on a wobble board, and we just have to be able to react appropriately to ensure that our primary focus is our students and doing what's right for students. Number one, keeping students safe and healthy, but then second, providing an appropriate educational and providing social emotional support as well. So it's changing the way we're looking at everything, including next school year.
Ms. Monteith, I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to do an interview with me. I appreciate it.
You are very welcome.
Thank you for listening to this episode of CHS Ignite. I'm your host, Wyatt Burichka, and next time we'll continue the admin's perspective of COVID-19 and online education.